Go ahead, Ray Skeeter. Oh my, who's that?
James. Joe Kennedy.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas.
Oh.
We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Boy, that's pretty neat.
Gotta put it up to the camera.
Yeah, I did.
How did you know about it?
That was when you called your dad and told him to do it.
Did you think I was nuts when you... Today you were telling me about it, and I said, yeah, I heard about it.
Yeah, I was then I asked Dad, I was telling Dad about it, and I asked him if he'd heard, and he said no.
Get the death there, yeah.
After I said, yeah, I heard, and then I thought, uh-oh. I thought Thomas would think I'm really nuts if I already know about it.
I thought maybe Debbie had written, but then I didn't really sit down and think that you didn't have time to write from the found
I
out.
knew you would have figured it out.
He called
I told
to
you
report.
not to worry about it.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
And so I was going to have Charles over, and then they couldn't come.
Oh, who decorated it?
We had it down in the bakery. The lady at the bakery says, somebody's on their way to being an outstanding officer, huh? So they knew something about what was going on, too.
Yeah. Now you gotta make the Air Force a career.
I don't know. They need distinguished graduates.
Little clock, 25, yeah.
Okay, go ahead and start. Zip it open. Oh, wow. That is going to be snazzy for you for school. Put it on.
Right, it's just a very like a movie camera.
Makes a better picture if you're doing something than it is if you just do it. I know. I took a roll of movies that I've never seen. I've got them, but I've never had a projector to show them on.
Oh.
I took them on a trip up into Montana and took pictures of deer alongside the road, and bear at Yellowstone National Park. And I didn't get the picture of Otto feeding the bear and getting his hand bit because I got a snap with the other camera. I didn't get it with the movie camera.
She went and sniffed it.
Yeah.
And then I took the first shot of her, and then she turned afraid of it or something.
Yeah.
Anytime I pointed it at her again, she'd run away.
Right. You finished your roll.
Yeah, there's only 16 shots on it.
Have you got any more?
Yeah, I've got one more package of them. I can run out to the car and get it right now.
Well, stay right there until he gets through taking pictures, and I'm going to get up and get you some.
Oh, you have discs still?
And I'm going to give him, well, I can see the red light flashing, so it must be
That
maybe.
must be working.
Yeah. I'm sure glad that you guys got to come by and see us for a while. And I'm glad you're going to get some pictures to take back, too. Yeah.
I get home, I'll make a copy of this onto other stuff that I want to send you, and then I can just send a tape to you and have a copy for you and a copy for myself.
Oh, good. That's real good.
That'll really be fun to see.
Oh, yeah. To have. You get some of your family in it, too, so we...
Yeah, I can show you Sheila's house there in Mesa and our house and what we've been working on there. Take her down the road and on around the tree and come back towards me on the other side, this side of the tree.
Kids have given up. Oh. My. He eats all our plants.
Plant eater.
Yeah. I mean, we've had... You got me to die. Those are nice.
Oh, those are... Yeah. That's just like ours, isn't it?
Ours is a rival.
Yeah.
Oh, man, look what we got for you.
Look at that. Got some eggs and bacon. Oh, you got hot dogs and beans.
Thank you.
Crystal.
You look pretty good.
Spaghetti.
In your little outfit.
Goes right in there in your backpack.
You got a canteen too.
Uh-huh. Well, we got 3 canteens.
Right? No? Hey.
Maybe 3.
I think I just left screws in. I got chocolate in.
Mike, or Simon, who's this? Who? Oh, your boutique?
I have a boutique.
Working.
I have a boutique.
Whoa. We're losing you.
job, Brittany. Good job.
She wished somebody to leave her a doll collection. And Shannon has quite a few of the dolls already. I think I sent her forward. And I think I let her take one. Oh, I let Ramona take one home with her. It was an antique doll that I had, that I made a porcelain head for it.
Oh, yeah.
And so I let her take it home with her because I want her to have it. I mixed with a friend that was teaching it while she learned, and we were both just learners. And she sent me to another studio to pick up a certain kind of glaze. And I had to go past that studio on my way home from her place. And I went in there, and she was teaching lace draping, small figurines, which I call a 6-year-old sized doll because it was a child. And she had 4 of them up in her cupboard. They were just beautiful, lace draped. And I decided I wanted to do that. And so I talked to her about signing up for her classes, and she said that her husband was ill, but if she was able to teach again in September, or if I'd come back, I could join the class in September. So I did start back, and I started out, she made me do a couple of porcelain heads that were not to go on dolls, they were just ornaments. And to learn how to handle the porcelain and how to paint the features on. And then a woman won the best of show, of Portland Ceramic Show, with 2 of those little dolls that I call the 6-year size. And so I said, well, I'm going to make one like that. She was making them there. And so I started in and I made one. And that's the one that's standing in the window over there.
Oh,
And so then she was my teacher then said, you're able to do this nice enough that I want you to enter the show next year. I want you to do My Fair Lady. And she produced a bunch of the pictures that would have been in the Ladies' Home Journal. And they were full-page, big pictures that showed how she was dressed and all. And so she would help me. She wanted me to pick this, and she'd help me pick out the lace that I should use and to make My Fair Lady so that I could enter it in the show. And I worked and worked at it. When it came to making the purse, well, the umbrella first, she said, well, you can't make the umbrella round. It'll have to be flat on one side because it, when it's fired, it'll flatten. And so I went ahead and made it, like she said, and I had to make all these things in her studio because the contest required that you do it under the teacher's supervision. And so when I got the umbrella made, well, I decided to make the purse at home while the other was being fired, and I found a way to fire it so it wouldn't be flat. I stood it on one of the stilts you use under shells, and that held it up. And I entered it in the show, and it won the best of show in the Portland Ceramic Show. I got 3 ribbons on it, and the prize was money, and I got like they call Freddy's on the awards on the TV, I got a Freddy. And when I got that done, I decided, well, now I lace draped one more doll for a friend in Los Angeles. And then I decided I didn't want to lace drape dolls. I wanted to make dolls with moving parts. And so I took the greenware for a doll that she used for the model for lace draping, and I altered the legs and the arms and the head where they attached so that you could string them together with rubber, whatever kind of rubber you had, elastic. And I started out by using the same kind you use in your sewing and clothing. And I strung the doll together, and I wrote a story about it. And the story was published in National Ceramics. And So the other ceramic teachers, they began to call my teacher from all over the United States and say, there's a woman out there making dolls, and we got to get in on the ground floor. So they wanted to start in and make dolls too. And she had this doll that I had made. She wanted to know if she could take it to the mold maker and have him produce a mold this way so that she could sell it like this. And I said, fine. And so I took another mold of the doll's head, and I took it home and I cut the hair all off and then molded hair onto the head the shape I wanted it, so it looked like a boy's hairdo. And a short hairdo like men were wearing, like my husband and my son was wearing. Mm-hmm. And I dressed it up in real lightweight wool trousers and a little knit sweater, and took it to the class, and immediately she wanted to reproduce the head and sell it the next year for to go with her doll, to have a boy and a girl. And I agreed. And she wanted me to make a mold off the head so she could reproduce it, because she didn't know how to make a mold off of a head and pour it again without losing the size. It would be smaller. But I did know how I could do that, and I did it. And so then the next year she wanted me to make feet without any shoes on, because the feet that she had on the dolls all had slippers molded right on them, and stockings too. And so I said if she'd give me a mold to waste, why, I could do it. But I was afraid to do it with my own mold for fear I'd ruin it and couldn't. So I took the mold she gave me home and reproduced the mold for the feet for her with the shoes all carved off, bare feet, with the toes showing. When I started doing those things, I decided I can make molds for things I want. So I can alter these heads and things the way I want them. So I began to try to come up with smaller doll, what I'd call a 2-year-old size. And I looked for plastic dolls I could make molds off of and different things. I came up with different size. Then I got interested in baby dolls. And I visited my stepsister down at the coast, and she showed me her collection of dolls, and she handed me a Japanese-made baby doll, and she says, you can have this one. I got a lot of these Japanese little dolls. And so I took it home. I thought, well, she gave me another little Cupid doll and said I could make a mold off of it, but she wanted it back. So I took those home, and I got to thinking, I might break the doll when I make a mold, because things are known to break when you put them in plaster of Paris. So I wouldn't make a mold off of the Cupid doll. I was afraid it might break. And so I took the other doll, and I made a mold off of it, and it had a real long back head, real funny looking, because I guess they made a Japanese baby, they made a copy of that baby. So I carved that head, the back part of the head, to the way I wanted it to be, the way I knew babies ought to look. And I reproduced that, and I made the mold. And it's a very, very crude mold, but I turned out almost 100 dolls out of it. I've sold them and given them away. And to my grandchildren, if they broke one, I replaced it with another one. And then I continually, up until 1975, tried reproducing things. I made heads for people that had the bodies of their dolls, but they didn't have any head. And I made bodies for dolls that people had the head, but they didn't have bodies, for friends. I didn't want to do it, go into it for professionally, because people would swap me with stuff like that. So I just did it for the friends that I wanted to do it for. And I made all the clothes for the dolls, and I do my sewing on the sewing machine almost entirely. Even the dollhouse-sized dolls, which are scale model, I do most of the sewing on the sewing machine, and I don't glue the doll clothes on. I make them so they can be put on and taken off. And that is different from the average make of those kind of dolls. They're usually glued on so they don't have to sew them. And I do sewing machine embroidery on their underwear and scallop the edges and things. It's a fun thing because sewing was my hobby before dolls were. And I have around 70 dolls on hand that I've made, and I have, I'd say, around 10 that aren't finished, that I've started and will eventually finish. And most of the clothing that I made for my dolls was made out of material that was given to me. I had friends that sewed for other people, and they gave me scrap material. And so I tried never to buy anything except maybe some ribbons or something like that in dressing the dolls. So they didn't cost me money to dress them, just the time and effort. And dressing them is almost as much fun as making them. And now they're all packed up, except these right here and my small antique collection. My antique collection, I think, contains about 9 dolls now. Well, don't, because I gave one of them to Ramona, so there'd only be about 8 of them.
Tell us something about these individual dolls that you have.
This doll I made to enter in the Centennial in the jewelry store window with a different hairdo. But I made George Washington, who is, in proportion, he is probably 5 or 6 inches taller than Martha, and dressed them both and put them in the window during the Centennial. Afterwards, I wanted to try making a wig with this false hair or false fur, and so this is what I tried and how it came out. I felt it was fun for one time, but not anything I wanted to do all the time or keep on the dolls. I like the imitation hair wigs that you can buy, which are made out of the same things that they make some wigs for women. And I have, a lot of my dolls do have wigs. And I made a doll that was the old-fashioned type that had she had a cloth body and a separate wig or head that attached to the cloth body. And I made a lot of this doll, and this is a dress for her. And I wanted a lot of wigs cheap so I could have wigs for her. And this doll head mold is my own mold. A friend had this mold, but it had collapsed when it was fired. And so I told her I could make the mold back so she could use it again. And she said, well, if you can pour all you want in it. So I took it home and made the mold was collapsed here. And so I scraped the mold out and made it so it was open so you could use it again. And reproduced it without shrinking it for my own use. And so I still have a mold for it. And these wigs were put out by Tony, who does hair for women. They were put out for a little Mattel doll. What was her name?
Barbie?
Barbie doll. They were put out to put on Barbie doll over the top of her own hair. And so I ordered 2 dozen of them. I think I have 4 left. The rest of them I've sold or given away, the dolls I made with the wigs on. And they are put on with elastic. That's just the way they come. And they just fit my doll head. And it's fun to make this one. I think I have 2 of these on hand. One of them that I've dressed in gingham dress, old-fashioned dress. And I just gave away the last one I had. I made a set of these for little women, and I changed them so that each one would represent the other one of the 4. And I gave one of each to my granddaughters, and that left me with one. And I still had Jo, and she was the tallest of them. And I made her head out of ceramic because it would be bigger, and made her feet out of ceramic too, and so she was a little bigger than they were. And I kept Joe until recently. Somebody was here and wanted to buy one of those dolls, and I sold him that one because I didn't have the others anymore. And this is the baby doll that I made that was originally a Japanese doll that had a real long head back here. And it's a beautiful little doll. The shape of the body and everything is really beautiful. It's got the cutest little legs and body. Little baby legs, you can see. And I still have the mold for it. The head mold is broken a little, but I still can pour in it and get them out. But I could reproduce the head mold, and maybe I will do it someday. And I sold so many of these, and I sold loads of them dressed in this antique material. My friend from Yam Hill collect antique clothing as well as this doll head was hers originally. And she gave me a pair of ladies' pantaloons, I guess you'd call them, but they were from the 19th century, the beginning of the 19th century, but they were real long and they came clear down to their ankles, and they were full around the bottoms, both legs were, and they were made out of this insertion and thin lawn material, the whole bottoms of the legs. And I used that dressing these dolls, and this is the very last piece I had of the material. And so I decided I would not part with this doll because it's got the last of my material and all. But I gave away loads of them. And I gave them to bazaars and places that they wanted donations, and that's what I used for my donation to them. So it was really a lot of fun to do and to have them on hand. And I've had them in a number of doll shows. I had them in a doll show that the Mormon Church put on in West Lynn at one time. It wasn't a doll show entirely, it was a hobby show. And met my cousin from Utah there. And I didn't know her and never had seen her. And I heard her name, and so when she came back where her collection was close to mine, I said, I used to know a Mary Dobson. And she said, you did in Portland? And I said, yes. I said, did you come from Utah? And she said, yes. And I said, Mary Dobson in Portland was my aunt. She said, he was my husband's grandmother.
That's Dobson's wife,
and
Mary.
then she brought her husband up and introduced him. And I saw him again last year at the family reunion at Salem. That was their first time to come to the family reunion in Salem. But I used to run into her, and she worked at the Lake Oswego School when I did. She was teaching home economics there as a substitute, so whenever she had to teach, well, she'd see me working in the kitchen. And then I met her husband a couple of times over at Ida Dobson's when he'd be over there to visit Henry when Henry was sick. I made this doll with the same mold that I made the Indian head, and the head was too big for the bodies I had, so I poured a body in ceramic because ceramic doesn't shrink as much, which made a body in the right proportion for the head. And kind of painted the head and dressed the doll, and she came out to be a real beautiful little doll. For this doll, and imported in porcelain, and so I made it up, but I didn't like the head that she gave with it. So I wanted to come up with a head that would fit the proportions, and so I poured one of the molds I had for a doll head in porcelain, in ceramic, the porcelain body, and the head is ceramic, and that made it more in proportion for the body, and made her into a ballerina. I made this doll to enter in the Portland Ceramic Show, and I used the mold to start with for a can-can dancer. It had a leg that stuck out in front. I cut the leg off, and the body then wasn't, it was poured in two parts. At the waist was separate, and the hands were separate. And I decided the body wasn't tall enough for the effect I wanted, so I lengthened the body at the waistline and glued it together. And you glue it together with porcelain slip while it's wet, and when it dries it holds. Then I draped the lace. The lace had to be cotton lace, because other lace will shrink as it's firing. The cotton lace does not. So I took the lace and spread it out on a glass shelf and painted the sides of it with liquid porcelain slip, and turn it over and do the other side after that set up. And but while it's still, you coat it several coats, and while it's still damp enough to handle like leather, it feels like leather at that time. And then you drape it on the doll in the shape that you want. And I copied a picture of My Fair Lady that was printed in Ladies' Home Journal, and tried to do it exact as the picture. It was a real work to get it done, and took a month of work. And the arms were separate yet. This was without any arms on at the time. And after I got the body all draped the way I wanted it, then I used the lace, except where the ribbons are. The ribbons, I used strips of plain sheeting coated with porcelain, and put them on where I was going to have the ribbons painted. Then I draped the sleeves, and the lace around the wrists was narrow lace together and put on. And you don't make these clothes ahead of time. You drape it onto the doll as you need it. When I got that part all draped and fired, I started with the head, and the head was attached, so I laced the collar around her neck, and then cut the hair off on one side so that the hat would fit over one side, and they draped what I used to call a nightcap on the side of her head to cover her hair, so the hat would fit on the other side. Then I made the hat. And the hat I poured, it was a casserole lid. It had a knob in the center, and I poured the casserole lid and cut the center out to make then I fired that so I would have something to fire the hat over when I fired it, so it would drape down. And then I took sheeting and shaped it to that lid. And then I took a paper cup and took a small tool and ridged around the cup like straw hat so that it would show the ridges, and cut the cup at an angle so that it would fit at an angle so that that part of the hat would be straight up on her head. And drape that together, and this was not on the doll at the time. This was being over a casserole lid. And I needed to come up with plumes for her hair, or for her hat. And the way I did that was I unraveled wool and draped it over the handle of a pitcher that I had that was the shape I wanted it to be, and then placed them on the hat where I wanted them. And then draped the sheeting to make a ribbon, which has now gotten broken, and put the ribbon on, and then molded the leaves of a flower to make a big poppy, because she needed a big red poppy on her hat. And I placed them on the hat still before it was fired. Then I painted the rim of the hat with one stroke, and the the upper part of the hat, left part white and part black, and painted the one plume black and left one white with one stroke, and painted the poppy with one stroke in red. So when that was fired, the color was already on them when they were fired. The ribbon had to be painted with China paint and had to be striped carefully with China paint. And it took at least 2 firings to fire the China paint to a black, because if you put it too thick it would run and one wouldn't be colored enough. And it took a long time to paint the ribbons. And to start with, I didn't think I could do it. But I worked at it, and I made a umbrella for her by putting a wooden doll through the umbrella, through the center, and draped an antique handkerchief with a lace edge, and draped it around for the lacy part of the umbrella, and turned it upside down over a stilt that used for propping the shelves, and fired it. And then I made the little centerpiece and fired it separate. And I put a wooden doll through it so it would burn out and I'd have a hole through. And the 2 little ruffles of lace, one at the bottom and one at the top. And for a umbrella handle, I used a piece of brass tubing. The purse was not really hard to make. I used the cotton net inside the purse and made it thick enough to make it the shape I wanted, and then draped all around it with the lace and fired it on a stilt the same way, and left a hole through it so that I could hang it on her arm with a string.
Marie and Mart's A-frame cabin in the woods on Southeast Beatty Road out of Sandy, Oregon, up at Cherryville.
That's her.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
John and
my
Bert.
grandmother looks really. Well,
She's got as
she
many
looks like,
wrinkles as I
she
have.
looks like she's had a rough life, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Boy, she looks good. You just took good care of him. Right there, in a place I always know, I haven't thought of it. Never fails.
That's through my shoulders and chest is where I'm built different than Harv.
Right, all of us.
Harv was more flat-chested and broader shoulders. And my chest is deep the other way.
Right. Remember we used to compare, see who had the most chest expansion?
Yeah, I know who always had the most.
What's you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he could expand 5 inches.
When I was in
Easily.
CC camp, I could expand 7.5 inches from deflated as much as I could puff my chest up. And the average guy was 3.
Wasn't your dad built that way?
That was chest was like built like me. Only he was a bigger man. He was 6 foot.
One's concave and the other's, what's the other word?
Convex.
Convex.
Another thing, John could draw his stomach in until it touched his backbone.
Oh, I know it. But it can't now.
No, not anymore.
Yeah, I know he can do good on that.
We used to practice it. We'd let all the air out of our lungs and bend over and then tuck our stomach in and straighten up. It looked like it just disappeared. It was just a cavity there where it had been.
Remember when we used to wrestle and put the scissors lock on each other's stomach and it didn't even hurt John.
Had a guy in the army. He was grabbing guys' hands, shake hands, and he shut down on them and till they hollered. I wasn't wearing any rings then, and I said, I bet you can't do that to me. He shut down on it, and
his hand just collapses.
Just collapsed, and he couldn't shut it any tighter, and that.
Yeah.
And I just stood there and grinned at him. I said, as long as you don't take your thumb and start working my knuckles, I said, you're not going to hurt me.
Yeah.
How old is she? You don't know? Is she a baby?
Oh, see your boat.
Video scenes from the Bostwick family, taken in Cayenne, Arizona, 1983 and later. In our first scene, Lynn Stoddard's kids and Sheila's two oldest girls give us a song.
I will keep my birthday and smile at my
Well, let's wait until they get through here. See the taping. Where's Grandpa? Where's Grandpa? Hey, peekaboo.
In 1984, Tanya gives us a little poem, Susie Snow.
Here comes Susie Snowflake dressed in a snow white gown, tapping at your window pane to tell you she's in town. Here comes Susie Snowflake, soon you'll hear her say, come on everyone and play with me, I have a bit more to say. If you want to make a snowman, I'll have to make one, 1, 2, 3. If you want to take a sleigh ride, rise on me. Here comes Susie Snowflake with gather tumbling down. Bring these are to every girl and boy. Susie's come to town.
Do you like it? He worked puppet strings so that it nodded yes. That settles it, said Geppetto happily. Pinocchio you are, and now he yawned. Time for bed. Good night, Figaro. Good night, Cleo. Good night, Pinocchio. Jiminy Cricket was glad to hear these words, for he felt.
Let me say prayer at our Christmas dinner.
Our Father in heaven, we thank for our new blessings. We're thankful for thy gospel. We're thankful for thy Son, Jesus Christ. We're thankful for this Christmas time, for the chance we have to celebrate. Help us to use that nourishment to do thy will, to further thy work. And we ask you to be with us always. And these blessings we pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Purple, blue, gray.
The way that camera is, you would never guess that you were on TV. I mean, maybe.
Nose,
Let me have some of your bread, honey. The one that you're not eating. all out at the door.
Go sit out in the sun. Are you in the sun? Why not sit out there? Okay.
century, shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over those lying in a manger.
Heavenly host, praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth, peace, goodwill toward men. And it came to pass, as the angels were gone away from them into heaven, the shepherds said one to another, Let us now go even unto Bethlehem, and see this thing which is exceeding great joy. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold, and frankincense, and myrrh.
Don't hit. know about that?
Camera. Yeah, I did.
How did you know about it?
I was when I called your dad and told him to do it.
Did you think I was nuts when you... Today you were telling me about it, and I said, yeah, I heard about it.
Yeah, I was Then I asked Dad, I was telling Dad about it, and I asked him if he'd heard, and he said no.
Get it up there. Yeah.
After I said, yeah, I heard, and then I thought, uh-oh. I thought Thomas would think I'm really nuts if I already know about it.
I thought maybe Debbie had written, but then I didn't really sit down and think that you didn't have time to write from when we found
I
out.
knew you would have figured out.
He called
I told
to
you
the
not to
phone.
worry about it.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
I thought we were going to have Charles over, and then they said he couldn't come.
Wow, who decorated it?
We had it down in the bakery. The lady at the bakery says, somebody is on their way to being an outstanding officer, huh? So they knew something about what was going on, too.
Yeah.
Now you gotta make the Air Force a career.
I don't know. They need distinguished graduates.
Oh, 12 o'clock, 25, yeah.
Oh, you're not fast. That's the Tom from Debbie.
Oh, what?
That's the Christmas.
Wow. That's pretty. Hey, yeah.
Ooh, wow.
Here's my present.
Oh, yeah, that's a good.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me again, Naveed. Naveed.
Yanny.
Whoa. That's a heavy one.
Okay, go ahead and start. Rip it open.
Woo-wee!
Take it out. Show it to Grandpa on the camera.
What is it?
Oh, wow. That is going to be snazzy for you for school. Put it on. You gotta unzip it. The last little bit.
Grandpa could
Take pictures of your life, huh?
I like that. I like it.
Microwave corn popper. They must know what we like on Sunday nights, huh?
how that works.
Cindy watched me as a
Yeah, for Christmas. The microwave corn popper. Look at the camera. Tiny little baby. He's a bald-headed little black boy, and he came with a coat. Lee called him little nigger.
Yes, I got a picnic and Colleen Flynn, Melody, and get called the Bee. And then I sometimes call her Melanie because that's what my name was. This is Angelina Myrtle. I call her Myrtle because...
This year, you're going to be hearing a lot about Halley's Comet. The excitement is building up, and when the comet arrives, you'll... Now the comet is returning again. Some people have the false idea that the comet is something that shoots past through the sky. Not so again. Actually, comets creep very slowly. You can see Halley's Comet for several months. And in early 1986, you need to know what's going on and where to look.
This is a picture of Halley's Comet, as seen by Saguaro Astronomy Club out near Luke Air Force Base tonight. The experts say that viewing conditions for Halley's are expected.
Move or just sitting. Oh.
Right. It's just a very like a movie camera.
It makes a better picture if you're doing something than it is if you just sit. I know. I took a roll of movies that I've never seen. I've got them, but I've never had a projector to show them on.
Oh.
I took them on a trip up into Montana and took pictures of deer alongside the road and all sorts, and bear at Yellowstone National Park. And I didn't get the picture of Otto feeding the bear and getting his hand bit because I got a snap with the other camera. I didn't get it with the movie camera.
She went and sniffed it.
Yeah.
And then I took the first shot of her, and then she turned afraid of it or something.
Yeah.
Anytime I pointed it at her again, she'd run away.
Right. You finished your roll.
Yeah. There's only 16 shots on it.
Have you got any more?
Yeah, I've got one more package of them. I can run out to the car and get it right now.
Well, stay right there until he gets through taking pictures, and I'm going to get up and get you some.
Oh, you have disc film?
And I'm going to give them, well, I can do the red light flash, so it must be
That
maybe.
must be working.
Yeah. I'm sure glad that you guys got to come by and see us for a while. And I'm glad you're going to get some pictures to take back, too. Yeah.
I get home, I'll make a copy of this onto other stuff that I want to send you, and then I can just send a tape to you and have a copy for you and a copy for myself.
Oh, good. That's real good.
That'll really be fun to see.
Oh, yeah. To have. You get some of your family in it, too, so you...
Yeah, I can show you Sheila's house there in Mesa and our house and what we've been working on there. Take her down the road and on around the tree and come back towards me on the other side, this side of the tree.
Have given up. Oh. My. Can't eat all our plants.
Plant eater.
Yeah. I mean, we've had.
Stand up with your arms kicking
You got me to guy. Oh. Those are nice.
Oh, those are. Yeah. That's just like ours, isn't it?
Ours is a rival.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Look what we got for you.
You must have bought some other paper.
Yeah, that's almost exactly like ours. Looks like I have more settings than ours.
This is like the one we got for Kenny.
Got some eggs and bacon. Oh, you got hot dogs and beans.
Thank you.
Crystal.
You look pretty good.
Spaghetti.
In your little outfit. I hope the others fit the other again.
Matthew. Matthew. Okay. That sounds fair.
Goes right in there in your backpack.
You got a canteen too.
Uh-huh. Well, we got 3.
You need to go back to bed.
Mine, or timer, who's this? Who?
My boutique.
Oh, your boutique?
I have a boutique.
Working.
I have a boutique.
Whoa. We're losing you.
You got
That makes a good picture of all the activity going on.
Okay, he's good. I'll be careful about his car.
Tyler, turn around and look at Grandpa.
Tyler, if you don't turn and look at Grandpa, I'm going to take your car away. And smile.
Nope. I get it. Nope. I
Got a nice scarf and everything on it, doesn't it?
Look at the cutest pictures of him. He opened up his little... There you go, you're all done. You ready to go to bed?
Everything else I think they opened, but I just happened to think, well, I haven't seen his clothes. You're talking about toys for him.
Are you ready to go to bed?
A whole bunch of lions. Daniel was scared, but he knew that Heavenly Father would take care of him very much. So, and he prayed, and then after he prayed, he went to sleep. And when he woke, and then an angel came down and blew through the lion's nostril. When Daniel woke up, the lions tried to come toward him, but they couldn't open their mouths. So Daniel knew that he was safe, and that Heavenly Father helped him. And then Jesus Christ did it.
Don't use plastic or rubber. Not plastic and sprayer. I want to in the kitchen. It doesn't matter if it's plastic or not. It's essential. I wouldn't say don't use it to use that kitchen it takes to reuse plastic ones, On Anderson States, the plastic and rubber has its more
Noodles. Jump on it. Help us. Got a lot of yucky. There it goes. Did you throw?
Yeah. that all the bigger bubble you can blow, Sonia?
I can blow a bigger one, if I just have time. You can blow that. Listen, it's your turn. Now my turn.
This one mine?
Everybody else is looking at themselves and not looking at them. What?
Let me see this. I had this one. I don't look on TV.
Go to bed and give that to Angela.
Oh, where did that TV? Where did I put the pen? Go get me on TV. Oh, get it for me, okay? And so I go back here so Santa Claus must shop at the same store for everybody.
I can open it.
The blue one is Grandpa's.
You got me open up from the study here. This is for Dad and I. And I already opened up one. So, Debbie! Go Santa.
That's for me. I made it all by myself.
Should I wait?
No, all candy's eaten while we're having some. Okay, you find more around.
Yeah.
Dad, open your Mama, I can't do.
Hey, boy. I'm in charge.
No, that's Grandpa. Oh, that's too cold.
I've got the dish.
Oh, Dad gets the dish.
All right.
Oh, my. What is it? I can't see it. Oh, wow. That is so neat. Wow. That's a miniature of the one in the temple, huh? And it's, Temple Square. Tyler, this is for you. Read on the center. I know, I'm looking for it.
Look out, guys. Look at me. Yeah.
Don't make it too long. It's too long.
This adjusts the light pretty good.
Where'd you go?
5 3/4.
Oh, my. It's the biggest one.
You want to try this one?
Okay.
Okay. Are you feeling up to it?
Yeah.
Would you like something to drink?
Yeah.
Would you like
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mama. Happy birthday, dear. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Did you make a wish, Sarah?
You already made your wish?
Okay.
That's good.
Made one.
Okay. Put it hot. Oh, yeah. Fire's always hot.
First things first.
Then pretty soon Sarah took off on that scooter and did right along with it.
1877. They traveled to Salt Lake where the group was enlarged and set their horses and their wagons facing south and began the journey which culminated February 14th.
What did you get? Money? Looks like the card comes down to his hand, too.
What does that say? Calvin and...
Well, that's good.
You want to get wet? No. No? Yeah.
Alright, little picture red.
Oranges!
It's not hot weather here.
Oranges!
Oranges.
I want one. I want one.
Are these edible oranges, Grandpa?
I want one.
I doubt it.
I want
It's ornamental
one.
oranges.
Uh-huh.
Grandpa says they're sour.
Just dribble it, Brittany. Don't kick it. Just dribble it down. Just a foot out over there. Way over. Way over.
Run out. All the way down here.